there, and welcome to this episode of Booklog. Today we'll have a look at this book here, Kolbe, Saint of the Immaculata. It's edited by Brother Francis Mary Kalvelage, and it's published by the Academy of the Immaculate. Brother Francis was born in Portland, Oregon, in the USA in 1923. During the Second World War, he served as a US Navy pilot. After the war, he joined the Cistercian monastery at Gethsemane, Kentucky, for a brief time. Later, he joined the Conventual Franciscans in Marytown in Illinois, where he did tremendous work for the Blessed Virgin Mary, such as editing the Immaculata magazine, which was one of the best Marian magazines of its day, and founding and directing the YMI, the Youth Mission for the Immaculata, which became the seabed of many vocations. In 1995, he transferred to the Franciscans of the Immaculate, where he continued to produce books on the Blessed Virgin Mary. He died in the year 2007. This book is divided into 7 parts. An account of the life and the works of St. Maximilian, his Mariology, the testimonies of some people who knew him, his Franciscan spirituality, and his impact on today's society. In previous episodes of Booklog, we have given an account of St. Maximilian's life and his Mariology. In this episode, we will consider some other aspects of his life that are considered in this book. St. Maximilian, who had been christened Raymond, was born in 1894 in Poland. He was the second son of devout Catholic Polish parents who were also Third Order Franciscans. Every evening, the Kolbe family would gather together to pray the Rosary to the Queen of Heaven and Poland. Like many boys of his age, the young Raymond would try the patience of his mother. On one such occasion, Mrs. Kolbe remarked to her young son, "Raymond, what is ever going to become of you?" After this incident, there was a noticeable change in the young Raymond's behaviour, and it was a change for the better. His mother wondered why, and she questioned him, and eventually the boy revealed his secret. He told his mother how her reproach had bothered him so much that he turned to his heavenly mother, as the home had a little Marian shrine, and he asked her the same question: "Mother of God, what will become of me?" He then went to the parish church and asked the Holy Virgin the same question again: "What will become of me?" The Holy Virgin appeared to the young boy, and with a tenderly motherly expression, she held in each of her hands a crown, one white and the other red. She asked Raymond to choose one of them. The white signified purity, and the red martyrdom. The young boy replied, "I choose both." The Holy Virgin smiled at this and then disappeared. As the book states, the course of his life was set by no less a person than the Mother of God. He would remain chaste, the white crown, and he would be a martyr, the red crown. From that time on, he would frequently talk to his mother about martyrdom. Father Maximilian had already been a priest for 9 years when in 1927 he founded his City of the Immaculate, that is, the friary at Immaculata, near Warsaw in Poland, on land donated by a local prince. The first inhabitant of Immaculata was the Virgin Mary herself. Her statue was set up on the vacant land. This friary eventually housed one of the largest religious communities in the world, over 750 friars. There the friars worked in shifts on a large printing press in an effort to keep up the increasing demand for the many Marian publications, such as the Night, published by the friary. However, the heart of the City of the Immaculate was the chapel. The book reminds us that, despite their hectic activity, Father Maximilian and his fellow workers spent, in accordance with their rule, at least 4 hours a day in community prayers and meditation. This was not all. the brothers were taught always to regard their work as a prayer. To keep this truth constantly before their minds, they were to speak only when necessary during working hours. In this immense printing establishment, where silence reigned supreme, the brothers moved about rapidly, with no time to waste. Recollection was the norm, and from time to time they turned their eyes to the ever-present statue of the Immaculata in each shop. They greeted one another with the name of Mary. Father Maximilian was most charitable towards the sick friars, and he made a point of visiting them every day. Community poverty was strictly observed in the friary, but the best and the most modern equipment was used for the cause of the Immaculata. And there is no contradiction here. The book relates to us that one day a visiting priest stopped before one of the imposing rotary presses in the printing plant and asked Father Maximilian, "If St. Francis were alive today, what would he say about all these expensive printing machines?" Father Maximilian replied without a minute's hesitation, "Why, he would roll up his sleeves like these good brothers and turn the presses at full speed, using this modern means of spreading the glory of God and the Immaculata." Father Maximilian wished to open up a house in China, and he and several other friars travelled to the Far East in 1930 for this purpose. However, at that time it was not possible to open up a house in China, so Father Maximilian and two of the friars travelled across to Japan, arriving in the city of Nagasaki on the 24th of April of that year. Their first act was to pay a visit to the local church, to give thanks for their safe arrival. In front of the church was the statue of the Immaculata, as though to welcome them. Father Maximilian took this as a good sign and predicted, "Our future work here will be very fruitful." Father Maximilian set about producing the night magazine, just like in Immaculata. One of the friars was assigned by Father Maximilian to learn how to typeset the magazine in the 4,000 signs of the Japanese alphabet. The night magazine, entitled Seibu no Kishi in the Japanese language, became the first publication in Japanese to be typeset by a European. The circulation of the magazine continually increased, and it eventually became the largest Catholic publication in Japan, bringing about many conversions to the faith. By 1933, the magazine had a circulation of 50,000. The life of work and prayer continued in Nagasaki, as in Immaculata. Buddhist monks who came to visit the friary were well received by Father Maximilian. The monks were very impressed with Father Maximilian and the friars. The friars soon outgrew their first home, which had been a house near the cathedral. They found a piece of land situated on the steep slopes of Mount Hikosan, on which to build a new friary. The move took place on the 16th of May 1931, and the new friary was named Mugenzai Nusono, which translates as Garden of the Immaculate. The building of the friary was carried out with the cheapest materials available. A large statue of the Immaculata was placed on the highest point of the property. It was providential that Father Maximilian did not build his Garden of the Immaculate in the centre of Nagasaki, in the Catholic Urami district. On the 9th of August in 1945, this area was completely destroyed by the terrible atomic bomb. The Garden of the Immaculate, however, was untouched, protected by the mountain that separated it from the centre of the explosion. On the 1st of September 1939, Poland was invaded by Germany. Immaculata was taken over by the invading army, and the remaining friars, including Father Maximilian, were deported to a detention camp in Germany. However, after some months, they were allowed to return to Immaculata. But for Father Maximilian, freedom did not last very long. On the 17th of February 1941, the Gestapo arrived at Immaculata to arrest him. Before long, he was being transported to the infamous Auschwitz concentration camp. In Auschwitz, Father Maximilian, now prisoner number 16670, was assigned to a work group of prisoners under a capo, or a guard, who was in reality a common criminal. This particular capo was cruel to the prisoners, especially priests. He seemed to have a particular hatred for Father Maximilian and used to beat him severely. Despite his harsh treatment, Father Maximilian always found time to give spiritual help to his fellow prisoners. He would hold clandestine spiritual conferences. These conferences would plumb the depths of various theological issues. Eyewitnesses have testified that Father Maximilian held the undivided attention of these poor, hopeless, starving, cold prisoners. Integral theologian that he was, his expositions of Catholic doctrine was fruitful, understandable, and applicable to their lives. Father Maximilian was not destined to live long in Auschwitz. One day in July of the same year, 1941, it was announced by the camp's brutal SS officer, Colonel Fritsch, that a prisoner had escaped. Fritsch ordered the remaining prisoners to line up in the hot weather, and should the escapee not be found, he would choose 10 of them to die in the starvation bunker. One of the men eventually chosen cried out in the Polish language, "Oh, my wife, my poor children, I will never see them again." Suddenly, there was a commotion in the ranks. A small, frail prisoner had broken ranks and stepped forward without permission. The prisoner approached Fritsch, removed his cap, and said in a low voice, "Please, Herr Commandant, I would like to take the place of that man." The Commandant turned to his fellow SS officer and demanded, "Who is this man? What is it all about?" The prisoner, number 16670, replied, "I am a Catholic priest, and I want to take his place." Incredibly, the commandant accepted the offer. So Father Maximilian joined the other 9 condemned men, whilst the man he saved rejoined the ranks. As the book states, Father Antonio Ricciardi, a conventual Franciscan, the general postulator of Father Maximilian's cause for canonization, summed up the scene well. As they stood there for what seemed an eternity, the total contrast between the two was something those eyewitnesses will never forget. Basically, it was the contrast between the man who rejected God and the man who dared to love him totally. The 10 condemned prisoners were sent to the starvation bunker. However, the Nazi jailers were not this time to hear the usual howling and curses from the bunker. Instead came the sound of prayers and hymns, as Father Maximilian prepared his fellow condemned men for the next life. On the 14th of August, the eve of the Assumption, only 4 men were still alive, of whom Father Maximilian was the only one still conscious. Seated in a corner, seeing the executioner approach with a syringe containing the poison that would kill him, with a prayer on his lips, he lifted his left arm to the killer. Then Father Maximilian, the martyr of charity and the hero of Auschwitz, passed on to his heavenly home with a serene expression on his face. The book gives us a short account of the lives of 2 men who come into the story of our saint's martyrdom. Francis Gajowniczek the man for whom Father Maximilian gave up his life, and Commandant Rudolf Hess, the head of the Auschwitz concentration camp and one of the greatest criminals in history. Rudolf Hess had given up his Catholic faith at an early age and joined the ranks of the Nazi Party. Captured just after the war, he was put on trial and sentenced to death. However, shortly before his execution, grace touched him. He finally accepted the guilt of his evil deeds and sought out a priest for confession. As the book states, no matter how hard-hearted a person might be, no matter how heinous his crimes, God offers reconciliation to all. Francis Gajowniczek survived the war and was reunited with his wife. Sadly, however, he never did see his two sons again, both having been killed during the Warsaw Uprising. He lived to attend both the beatification and the canonization ceremonies for St. Maximilian. After the canonization ceremony, he summed up his feelings. For years I suffered great doubts over the part I played in contributing to Father Kolbe's death. This great day has put an end to my doubts forever. Today is the happiest day of my life. He spent the rest of his life giving speaking engagements and singing the praises of the priest who gave up his life for him. This book is a good comprehensive introduction to the life and the works of St. Maximilian, and at the same time it's easy to read. It contains just over 250 pages and it's well illustrated with photographs. Details as to how the book can be obtained will come up on your screen shortly. So thank you for listening to this episode of Booklog, and let's close with some words of St. Maximilian that are quoted in the book. The source of peace is resignation to the will of God, to do what is in our power and leave the rest to the care of divine providence. Have the confidence of a child towards its best mother.